What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Jason Hook of Flat Black, of course, formerly of Five Finger Death Punch. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's great to have you here.
My pleasure, Alex. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. For somebody who's listened to your guitar solos for such a long time, from the work you've done with Five Finger to now this new amazing album with Flat Black, it's really just an honor to be speaking to you and really to discuss what the future holds, because this new album, A Dark Side of the Brain, is really, really fucking epic. It's like, I love the catchiness of it. It has so much to say, but it's also very easy to digest. Was there at all sort of like a vision that you had behind the making of this album? Was there like a goal you were trying to achieve, or was it a very like roll of the dice, sort of like a happen by chance sort of songwriting process?
Well, first of all, you have heard the whole record?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's cool for me because first, the record was done in January of 2023.
Wow.
So it's been, a year and a half, and no one's heard the stuff until now, and only a small group of guys like yourself are getting a chance to hear it. So it's kind of cool for me to talk about the songs that no one else has heard yet. But yeah, I mean, I've been a songwriter my whole life, and it's something that I've worked very hard at. It's something that I try to get better at, and with this Flat Black band and with the Flat Black record, I had the luxury of just doing whatever I wanted to do. And being that it's a brand new project and we're trying to re-enter the atmosphere at a level that's not at ground zero, I figured better take my time with it and try to make sure that the songs are all of a certain quality, to me anyway.
Yeah.
To my instinct.
There's no filler on the album. Like, I really don't like, I mean, the singles that we have heard so far, Justice Will Be Done, Sideways, Halo, Nothing to Some, which features Corey Taylor, these are all great singles, but with tracks like Villain or Euthanize, which I love, like the way that it's spelled out, that's really clever right there. I like, to me, like when Machine Head put Realize,
Yeah.
like it had that sort of thing. And I think ending with a Let It Go, fantastic, way to enter to exit that album. With reinventing yourself, you have your whole life to make your first album, and you've been in music for a long time, even predating Five Finger, but like you have your whole life to make your first album. At this point, when you make a new album, is there like a grid or a formula that you stick with, or kind of like a usual method behind your madness, or has the making of every album still been like its own individual experience?
No, there's a couple of things that I sort of lean on. I always start with music. So for me, I spend a lot of time up here in my house trying to get exciting tracks, because I find that sets up the vocal a little better. So I'm really, the first thing for me is to try to assemble music that is not always exciting music, but some music that sets some sort of mood, because all music really does is transmit an emotion to the listener. And that's why I was always so fascinated with soundtracks, movie soundtracks, because there's no lyrics. It doesn't have to break the top 10 on the charts, and it doesn't have to be cool, or it doesn't have to appeal to anybody. It's just designed to set up the emotion that's supposed to go with that scene. And that's really all music is. It either like makes you want to clench your fist and go and be aggressive, or it can be really soothing if you're really sad. Somebody who's really sad, they'll put on their favorite sad song on loop.
Yeah.
Why? Because it helps bolster that feeling that they have. So to answer your question, so I'm trying to get a batch of certain emotions, and once the music sort of does or has that quality, then I move to like lyrics, melody, and all that stuff.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense too, because I've always said that lead guitar is very much like the second singer of the band. I mean, it conveys the same aspect. You have the vocal melody, with lyricism and all that is supposed to, move the listener. The guitar soloing is the exact same way. And all the solos I've heard from, War's the Answer, American Capitalist, to now with Flat Black, you're able to do that. Are you like, because Is there sort of like a technical aspect behind it? Are you paying attention to key and form and scale, or being that you focus on the music first, it is just whatever sounds good? You don't really think too much of the technical aspect in a way.
I don't. Again, with the solos, I've developed a technique that I've been using for years, and I basically sort of carve out where the solo is going to be, and then I just sit up here and I loop record the section 30, 40 times. And I take my brain out of the equation and I just play with my heart and my fingers, and I just play. And I don't know, it's a lot of the what happens with the guitar solos is really just a result of me listening to or growing up and being influenced by players that come from a more feel approach and maybe a more melodic approach. I sort of gave up on trying to be the fastest guitar player like decades ago. And I kind of think that there's, just like a lead vocal, just like the song, just like anything, I'm trying to make it emotional and not stock. It's how do you do that? So something I practice, I listen to all my takes and I sort of assemble it based on what parts did that the best.
Yeah. I don't think it matters, like if you and not to discredit, all the shredders in the world, but I don't think it matters if you have Joe Satriani or Randy Rhoads in your band. Like, there have been solos that may just use 3 notes. There was one solo in particular that always stood out to me, and I believe it was on Bulletproof off of Warren the Answer, because it's like very fast and groovy, but when you bring your solo in, it's almost kind of like dreary and kind of like dreamy and like mesmerizing, and the notes are more sustained. It's not like you're hitting 1,000 freaking notes. And I used to have a theory that some of those guitar shredders only put like 40-minute long solos because maybe they get paid by the note with each album. But I think you could do so much with just 3 notes as opposed to 3,000 notes.
Right. And I bend a lot. Sometimes I bend to a bend. You know what I mean? So it's hard to track, like, where is he playing that? Because it's a lot of times I'm bending to a bend. So I'm playing melodies that are not fretted. They're like bends to bends, So like I have almost 2 notes per fret.
Yeah.
I have the bent note or the fretted note, So I have this extra palette of choices with my fingers. And I always made the analogy of, I don't judge the quality of a conversation based on how many words I cram into 5 minutes. It's what we talked about. It makes it a quality conversation, not how much we talked.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like as an interviewer, I could maybe learn to do that as well sometimes. But with the instrumentation that is even on this Dark Side of the Brain album, because the way, like, it's okay to be angry. It's not just the title, but just the way it leads into it. It's a perfect way that demonstrates that the song you could just put untitled there, and it almost feels like that is still the statement there. But you mentioned that you drive based off of emotions, which I think is great, but emotions can come and go so quickly. So when you're working on a song for like a long extended period of time, is it kind of difficult to sort of retain and maintain the emotion that initially sparked the idea?
No, I don't think so. Because really that's how I approach it. There are some songs that didn't make the record that I thought had great guitar stuff in there, but as a song it just wasn't as good as the stuff that made the record. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about emotion, I think that I'm looking for stuff where you can put it on and people go, oh, I love this. Yeah. But don't change. Like, don't break that up. A lot of things that I hear in modern music is that they're trying to cram 15 different songs into one song. So you got this really great part and all of a sudden we're going, it's too much information. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. I think that human beings are analog, and too much information, and if you break the vibe, if you establish a really good vibe with a song, if you break the vibe, then you kind of lose the reason why the person was into it in the first place.
I feel like sometimes when emotions are the driving force, you could almost become what I say, like, victimized by your own product sometimes, where like you get so wrapped up in the emotion that you kind of lose hindsight of the whole composition,
I mean, imagine if Enter Sandman broke into an odd time signature and blast beats. I mean, You know what I mean? Like that's
I
and
probably
and that's fine. But for me, I just recognize that that the audience is invested at a very shallow level. So I try to keep things simple when they need to be, so that you grab people and hold them.
Yeah, I think that's what was sort of like very key to Five Fingers' success as well. Because not to discredit any of the work that you've done, but like I think with like Five Finger, the lyrics were relatable. Not being somebody that you're not. I mean, that is something people relate to. Whether you're a businessman, you're a veteran, or you're an artist, or you live on the streets, that is something that we all relate to. And I think that there was no rush, or there was not no rush. There was no build up to the hooks. It was just one hook after another, and knew how to hit those receptors. And when I listened to Dark Side of the Brain, it reminded me of what I liked about the riffs I heard you and Zoltan do in Five Finger as well. Like, I felt like it hit that same sort of receptor. It almost seems like you know how to hit that dark side of the brain, if you will.
Well, I have my own theories on music, not music theory, but theories on what makes people gravitate towards a band or their songs. And Ivan is an excellent storyteller. He's very gifted in that department. But I think that it's kind of like I worked very hard on those records, and so if you're hearing things that are similar, it's because it's maybe that I'm involved over there and I'm involved over here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also, correct me if I'm wrong, you also played with Hilary Duff for a period of time too, right? So like,
yeah.
I mean, having that sort of mainstream Disney thing, which by the way, as a little kid, I loved Hilary Duff. I'll just say that right now. When she was on Nickelodeon all the time when I was like 9 years old, I had to mention that at least once. But like, I'd imagine being in that sort of world had to have maybe influenced how you play in metal as well, right? I mean, kind of bringing a little bit of that into this. Did that at all influence it?
Well, not really, to be honest. I mean, I could appreciate why popular music works and appeals to such a wide audience, like Taylor Swift or, Post Malone or something. I mean, I can hear those songs. My wife loves Taylor Swift, so I'm always hearing those songs. I'm like, what a great song, And that's, pop is just short for popular. So there's a reason why that music touches such a wide audience, and there are components of that music that I'm attracted to just from the standpoint of it reaches a lot of people. Yeah. And so I don't really want to have this be the headline of the interview, but I always think about how to keep the most amount of people engaged, and not unlike some of the big pop artists,
Yeah, well, I mean, look, so I have a theory about this. Like, I was having a conversation at a metal bar, and I was talking to a couple of people who were had a couple beers, and they were like going on a whole rant, fuck Cardi B, fuck all these pop artists, all they sing about is sex and partying and all that. I'm like, what do the majority of people like? Last time I checked, everybody likes sex. Last time I checked, people do like to have a party and have a good time. Not to just, I love black metal and I love death metal, but not a lot of people are going to identify with Stripped, Raped, and Strangled by Cannibal Corpse. Not everybody is going to listen to the Cosmic Keys of My Creation in Time by Emperor and be like, that relates to me in such a profound way. No, Cardi B's WAP, a lot of men like what that song sings about, and women. So like, I think just in the end, that's what people gravitate to. It's not, I don't think somebody gravitated towards that makes them basic or shallow. It's just a product of the time. The Andrews sisters in the 1920s were singing about their loved ones going off, or the 20s or 40s or whatever. They were singing about their loved ones going off to war. A lot of people were experiencing that at that time. So,
well, I think too that like the heavier the music gets, the more abrasive it can be.
Yeah.
And the net, in my opinion, is that the more abrasive music is, then you're really only chopping it down to that small audience that is looking for that, and little bits and pieces of that I like. I mean, obviously there's some heavy abrasive stuff on the Black record, but it's all about achieving a balance. if we go into that gear, I don't stay on that gear too long. I offer a little relief right after that, so that you get a little taste of it, but it doesn't grind you to the point where you want to turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, like, heavy is like really subjective too. Like, you ask the average suburban soccer mom, oh, is the music you listen to, oh, is it heavy like Disturbed? Like, they would think like Disturbed is like devil music, you know what I mean? But
So it's all relative, right?
yeah, like I would and I mean this as a compliment, I call artists like Flat Black or, like a lot of more mainstream Disturbed, Stained, you name it. Like, I call it octane rock because that's where I would discover the majority of it. And I think, again, like, I think you hit the nail on the head too, because tracks, again, like Unwanted or A Bit of Lightning, you have the metal, you have the rock, you have the soft aspects. I think there is it has the ability of being experimental without being directionless, and it has the ability of having a flow without being repetitive. That's my review.
Great. I mean, look, I put everything that I have learned into this record. To me, it's the best that I have to offer at the moment. It's like I'm always trying to make a masterpiece. I think that a lot of people, well, it's just the state of the industry is that nobody's buying your record. So I think people look at it like, well, then why spend 2 years on it?
Yeah.
And for me, my attitude is the opposite. My reputation, records are forever. So when I'm dead, the only thing that I have left circulating is whatever I have released. And so I find it fairly stressful, actually, because I don't settle. Like I'm always trying to think, like, in my head, I hear that as it could be better. Yeah. So I don't care how long it takes. We're going to try to make it better.
And that's just the symptom of being an artist, right?
Yeah. It's not unlike Mutt Lange, who is, I know that he's sort of a hero because he didn't care how over budget the thing ran or how long the thing ran or what it took, or he'd rent equipment from all over Europe just to get some sound or whatever. He's a maniac. But in here, he can't settle until it's right for him. But the results speak of themselves,
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask this. This is sort of like a new question I've been asking. I've only asked this to one other artist, so you're number two. And it's actually because you make music. You have all this gear behind you. You know how to make an album and you listen to it. For a listener, they aren't maybe paying attention to that. And I think it's not just that. Like, for instance, tattooing, right? I'm not no client, or not I would no client, but like a person who loves getting tattooed but may not be a tattoo artist, they're not gonna be like, oh, that line weight is inconsistent. Oh, there's a blowout there. Oh, this is undersaturated. Like, nobody's really complaining about
I might.
That. Okay, fair. And listen,
I can look all over and go, this guy sucked, and he really fucked me over here. And
hey, listen, I've been practicing on my own legs, so like I know the feeling of a bad tattoo. But music, like, nobody's reviewing an album being like, oh, they didn't put enough gain and reverb on this backing track with this tool, or they didn't tune the preamp the right way. So, do you digest music differently as a musician versus as a listener, in a way? I mean, that makes sense.
Yes. I think that, I don't listen to a lot of new music. I feel like, I'm trying to pay attention and protect what's happening in my head. And again, when I listen to music for pleasure, like I was on Sirius XM yesterday, and all we did was talk about Kiss, which makes me very happy because I love Kiss. And so I'll always jam an old Kiss record. It makes me feel a certain way. It reminds me of when I was young listening to the same music. But when it comes to creating music, I forgot the question. What was the question?
No, I keep going on because I was enjoying listening to you talk. But it was, how do you digest music differently as somebody who makes music, as somebody who listens to it?
Well, look, all the time I'll be like in the mall or at a restaurant or watching TV, and I'll be like, whoa, back that up. And then I'll Shazam it. And I don't care. A lot of times it might be a documentary that has a piece of music or a song that I'm like, that made me feel a really strong emotion against the documentary. I'll find out what that is, right? And then I'll come back to it later on and saying, I want to create something similar to that has nothing to do with the documentary or the song. It's just that really fit. It made me feel something just from the music, and that's the kind of stuff that sparks new ideas. I don't ever start with like, I got to impress guitar players. To me, that's a huge mistake.
I really, it feels so good to hear you say that, because I could tell that you take inspiration from Kiss. I could tell that you have that inspiration, but you also have a lot. You evolve in your own way, and that's what I think makes you different. And it's a generational thing too. I'll just full on say, and I'll get all the hate in the world, but like, I didn't get into metal through Kiss or Sabbath or Dio. I was born in '93. I got into metal through the Avenged Sevenfolds and the Disturbed and Five Fingers, and like was what was leading me into that. So we're all going to have our own different ways of digesting and our own different ways of experience.
Well, I think that one of the things that I identify as, contributing to my style is that because I'm a little older, I was exposed to bands that really, it wasn't computer-based anything. These bands actually had to rehearse and write a song as a band in a room and work it up with the mindset that this has to translate to the show we're doing on Saturday. Even for me, like playing clubs as a teenager, we would write songs that would hopefully get people to go, I love that one song, and then they would come back next Saturday and the next Saturday, and then you would build a following. So you weren't getting all that all that chaos. There was no way that was going to work. I mean, we were focused on AC/DC and catchy stuff that would make people feel good.
Yeah. And I mean, in the end, that's why people want to gravitate towards music. Like, for instance, I'm a diehard Lamb of God fan. I freaking love Lamb of God, of all their albums. The first time I heard Lamb of God, I shut it off immediately. I could not get into it. It scared the crap out of me. I was like, this is, who is this gurgler on the scene? It didn't make me feel good. It made me feel progress. And then after, slowly getting more into it, now they're one of my favorite bands. So it really is also a time and place on how you experience the music as well.
Right. And I've been exposed to some of that music as well. Not so much Lamb of God, but some like the really deathcore stuff. And I find that the emotion that I feel is anxiety. It makes me like, it's chaotic and it makes me feel anxious. And so, it's to be used sparingly. I do love Redneck, though. That is a kick-ass, sick-ass song.
Oh, that's one of the best.
Yeah,
the only anxiety I have with deathcore is trying to read their logos, but I love listening to it.
Yeah, the whole thing is designed to be anti.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and there's a lot of youth out there that need that,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole anti thing, I think it's getting kind of overdone. I think we fought so hard against cliches that we've become cliches. Like I think almost being generic is almost a way of being rebellious at this point.
Right? Yeah. That's kind of why, like, the simplicity of Flat Black and the melodic nature, or maybe the basic nature of it, might actually be fresh. When really I'm just doing the same thing I've done since I was a teenager, just trying to make good songs that are easily ingestible.
Is that maybe the meaning of the band name Flat Black? Like, because I mean, we've heard
no. I mean, look at what you're wearing, and then look at all the artwork on your wall.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it happened by accident. I had a list of 1,000 names, and all were wretched. And if there was one name that everyone was like, that's kind of cool, let's look it up. And then you can't get the URL, you can't register the name, you can't get the social media handle. So it's really tough to pick a band name that covers all those territories, right? It has to be easy to pronounce, easy to read, easy to spell, doesn't require an explanation.
Yeah, unless you're deaf.
It's tough. It's tough. And Flat Black, I've told the story a few times, when I was driving down Las Vegas Boulevard and there's a small private airport, and I was driving down the boulevard, I was looking over, and there was this flat black private jet that had like that papaya orange sort of pinstriping, accent colors, and I was looking at that going, that is fucking sick. That looks sick. Whoever owns that must be important, like it's badass looking. And so I put it on the list, Flat Black, and for a long time, everyone around me was saying, "You got to call the band Hook. That's the obvious move." And I'm like, I don't want to call it Hook. It's not Jason Hook and Friends. It's a band, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought that's not really digging very deep now, is it? Calling the band Hook. Like, wow, we really put some energy into that. So I didn't want that. So we came down to like the last day where people were like, well, we pretty much have to commit because we're going to go into, announcing stuff and artwork and all this stuff. So I went down the list and I said, how about Flat Black? Everyone's like, that's pretty cool, actually, because it's sort of black is sort of the color of our genre. Male, metal, black t-shirts, black stuff, right?
Yep.
And flat black sort of being one level sicker. If you're murdering out your motorcycle or your car or whatever, like people wrap their car with flat black. It's kind of like sick.
Nothing makes me. At least there's been multiple times where I go to a show and I overhear somebody say, "Hey, have you seen my friend? He's wearing the black shirt." Like, I'm like,
"Oh yeah, I remember him."
Yeah. I really, they gotta film that. I just want to see, like, I'm going to the restroom and my friend comes back. He's wearing the black shirt. Let me know if you find him. But there's a couple more questions I wanted to ask. It's circling back to something we talked about earlier with emotions, but you also referenced playing live. So you capture these great emotions when making the music. When you play it live and you have to replicate it day after day after day, do you have to put yourself in the same emotional headspace to execute the song live? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of hyper by nature, so I like playing the exciting stuff live. It's nice to step out on stage and start with "It's okay to be angry," because like, that's how I feel when I walk, when the lights go off and you walk out there. That's how I want to feel. And you don't want to open up with a mid-tempo song. Let's blow this place up right out of the gate, get people's attention,
Yeah.
And so, I do feel hyper on stage. Like I can't sit still. I feel like exaggerated in my brain. So when we play live, especially these shorter sets, we're kind of picking the high energy stuff, as an introduction to the public. We also want to make it as exciting as possible. It's very a brief set and it's boom.
When songwriting, how do you know when you're finished with a song?
Well, I don't think I'm ever finished with anything. I abandoned records. I never finished.
Yeah, I get that all the time.
Yeah, I even now I hear some of the Flat Black record and I go, I would have added that there. I don't know why I didn't, but now I'm hearing something that I think should have been added, but you simply can't. You got to get as much as you can when you can, and then at some point, look, you have to release this music. It's show business. It's no good without an audience, right? So, it's not for. I do the music because it makes me happy, but the goal is to share it with as many people as possible, and hopefully they receive the same feeling.
I think the feeling is mutual. I think that's why people tend to gravitate to it. I feel like some people have lyrics that define them. You definitely have riffs and solos that definitely define you. That still resonate with people. There's songs that you have made where I fast forward to the solo, and just.
That's funny that you mentioned Bulletproof. I can't hear the solo right at the moment, but I remember at the time thinking that's a pretty unique approach, and I can't even hear it right now. I don't even know what it sounds like, but I remember thinking that one's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's basically like. I'm speeding in a car when I'm listening to that, and then the solo comes in, and then I just smoke a joint.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's melodic, but I think it maybe has some rhythmic component in the beginning. I don't remember.
The notes were very sustained.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, look, I treat the lead guitar stuff as a vocal.
Yeah.
It's supposed to feel like it bending and moaning and crying and exciting, and then it's almost like a lead vocal to me.
I think it's just as much as a lead vocal. I think it is. The guitar solos do act as the second singer.
Yeah, and if it's done properly, I think. If you're doing all the, it's just to me, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love bands like Animals as Leaders or Polyphia or Chan. Like, I love seeing those shows live. They're mesmerizing. They're easy to get lost and listen to. I listen to those bands when I want that, though. When I want to listen to good songs, I like simplicity being featured in there. I don't need a 2-minute solo to make a song good, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like, I grew up listening to like David Gilmour or Neil Schon or like Eddie Van Halen, guys that would play for the song, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, for such an awesome conversation. Most of all, thank you for Dark Side of the Brain. This album is spectacular. I'm so glad it's finally seen the light of day. I had the privilege of hearing everything, but I cannot wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Is there just anything else that you'd like to promote with the release of this album that you're allowed to talk about at this very moment, of course?
Oh, well, first of all, it means a lot to me that you like the record because even, I put everything that I have into that record, and I still don't know how people are going to respond to it, but it's fun to get feedback from the very few people like yourself who've heard it. It comes out on all digital platforms July 19th, which is coming up here pretty soon. All of the vinyl is a double vinyl, and it has side 4 live from Edmonton.
Ooh.
Right. So nobody buys records anymore. I get it. I understand that. But I thought, let's make the physical stuff, the CD and the vinyl, like we'll sign a bunch of them. But side 4 is live from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, wow. That's going to be freaking awesome.
Right. So, like, I thought, who does that? Releases a live album in tandem with their very first album. But I don't care. I'm like, this band was meant to be a live band. And we've been playing these songs now for almost a year live. And so the only versions people know are the ones they're watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. Because a lot of people are learning the songs and posting the riffs and all that based on what they're watching on YouTube. So I get the indicator that it's already sort of catching on. And so we didn't have enough material to fill 4 full sides. If you put the whole record onto 4 vinyl sides, it ends up being 2 or 3 songs per side, which I thought was really odd. So I said, let's cram the record back onto 3 sides, and then I'll mix up one of the live recordings for side 4. So you get a live side.
That's a live side. I like that. That should be the name of the vinyl, the live side.
Live side, yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Jason Hook of Flat Black, Dark Side of the Brain. Be sure to pick that up July 19th. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.
Thanks, Alex.